Warning. This program contains frank and mature discussions intended to educate and advocate on the subjects of sexuality, sex, and gender and body positivity. Due to the nature of the topics being discussed, this may include subject matter and language that some may find offensive. This program is intended for adults only. If you are under the age of 18, if such material offends you, or if it is illegal to view such material in your community, please exit now.
Brown chicken, brown cow. 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 This is fun. Brown chicken, brown cow. Brown chicken, brown cow.
Welcome, everyone, to the Brown Chicken, Brown Cow Show. I am one of your hosts, Sean Monkey McKinney. You can just call me Monkey. And with me today, I have Miss Laura. Miss Laura, you want to say hi?
Hello.
There
Chickens
you
and
are.
cows?
Chickens and cows, yes. Because the
Yes.
It is only more fun with the sexiest chickens and cows at the barnyard.
It's true. It's
Sorry.
definitely
True. Definitely true with the sexiest animals. Today's actually, we're wrapping up our series on the intersection of sexuality and spirituality, and we have a really, really cool guest with us today. What do you know about our guest, Miss Laura?
So our guest today is Lon Milo DuQuette. He is a writer, a lecturer, a musician, and an occultist, so I'm pretty excited to learn a lot of new things.
Yeah, he's also best known as an author who applies a lot of humor to the field of Western, Hermeticism?
I would have said it Hermeticism, but I'm a famous butcherer of words, so maybe we can ask him.
Well, yeah, and I'm dyslexic, so, I mix words up all the time. Anyway, let's go ahead and bring him on the air. Lon, are you with us?
I am with you.
Woohoo! Technology works.
Eventually, yes.
So Lon, let's just jump in a little bit. Can you help us with the word that we just butchered?
Hermeticism.
Yes.
There we go.
And
that's one for Laura's column, yeah.
It's sort of a very, very, very generic term for sort of the Western metaphysical mystery tradition, and it's which has its source in sort of the late Neoplatonic Greek mysticism movement of the early first few centuries. But everything from astrology to numerology to the Hermetic Kabbalah to palmistry, tarot cards, all fall under the general category of Hermeticism. And in the last 200 years, so does the field of Western ceremonial magic. So that's my field. It's narrow, but it's mine.
So Lon, I'm just going to kick it off with a question right away. So you started out as a musician for a while there, and it seems like you were doing pretty well, and then you kind of shifted to exploring Hermeticism. Can you tell us a little bit about your music and how you, was there anything significant in your life that kind of led you down a different path?
I don't know if anything has led me anywhere. I've never had any goals. I've never had any plans. I've never lived strategically. I've sort of just gone with what has dropped in my lap and gone in the direction I want to take it. So I started out, as you say, I started out as a musician, but I started out earlier than that. I was a child. I was first, and but anyway, I'm sort of a child of the 60s. I graduated from high school in 1966, just sort of in time for the wonderful and colorful psychedelic revolution. I was politically motivated and very active in the anti-war movement. And so I, of course, as lots of boys my age in those days, it was mostly boys. I had a band in high school, and we were so incredibly unaware of our own lack of talent that we were actually pretty successful. And we even in high school, I worked regularly and helped support my family. I had a very ill father. But immediately after high school graduation, I moved back to California, actually where I was born. I was in Nebraska for 10 years. My God, that's where I learned what hell is. Again, I was so unaware of any limitations I might have on my artistic expression. Soon fell in with a songwriting partner. We eventually got a record contract with Columbia Records, Epic Records, which was Columbia and CBS, and released 2 singles and an album of our own material, and did a lot of studio work and collateral touring and opening for other acts who were, far more notable and famous than we were. And that was more or less it. I married my high school sweetheart, Constance, and we're still married and celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary in just a couple days.
Awesome. And, congratulations.
I will wait for the applause, yes. And but anyway, we became pregnant in around 1971, and the fact that I was pretty successful in the music business carried with it a lot of other collateral baggage, including the fact that I really enjoyed the excesses of being a successful recording artist, and that didn't really sit well with being a family man, soon to be a larger family, and I more or less gave up it was a no-brainer, but it was either give up the music at the time being, or not be a stable father and provider and all of that. And again, I didn't plan it that way, or it didn't seem like a big sacrifice. It was just the thing to do, and that reignited my interest in Eastern mysticism, which I had since the psychedelic days of the 60s, and that eventually got me into the comparable spiritual studies of the West, which included Kabbalah, ceremonial magic, and all of that. And I fell into the writings of Aleister Crowley, the famous or infamous English magician who died in 1947, and I fell in with some of his the last few remaining disciples he had, and more or less have specialized in that kind of approach to Kabbalah, Tarot, Western mysticism. So that's it. I'm a bum. What can I say? I started writing in about 1988. I never wanted to write. I never planned to write. Like I say, I don't have plans. But I was invited to co-write a book on the psychological aspects of tarot by a then already best-selling author, Christopher Hyatt, Ph.D., and then he and I ended up writing 4 books together, 4 books in 2 years. And from then on, it was just a matter of me just sort of keeping up with what it looks like I was meant to do at any given time. And since then, I've published a lot of books on my own. I've been very lucky with publishers who are seem willing to publish my works. And for about the last 20 years, I've been going around the world trying to explain myself to others.
Yeah. So what you're telling me is that my plan of just winging my life for forever is going to work, probably.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. So you actually mentioned Aleister Crowley a little bit. Can you tell us about him and about I'm just going to call it the OTO and let you pronounce the whole name so that I don't butcher it?
Well, Aleister Crowley is a very interesting character, and he was way ahead of his time, sort of a wild and crazy person who was not so much wild and crazy, but just incredible genius that very few people at the time understood where he was coming from or what he was doing, but he has since turned into or been recognized as one of the greatest esoteric spiritual characters of the last few hundred years, and but he was sort of misunderstood in his time because he had number one, he had a terribly unique and complicated sense of humor, and he enjoyed terrifying people who were easily terrified. And in a sense, he thought everybody was as much of a genius as he was, and really didn't understand when when other people easily misunderstood what he was trying to do. So he sort of embraced the image of being a black magician and a terrible person. And in fact, among his many accomplishments, he was a world-class mountaineer. Several of his mountain climbing records still hold. You'll find his name and picture in all sorts of mountain climbing coffee table books. He worked for British intelligence. He helped start World War I.
Wow.
He was Sidney Riley. There's a wonderful new book out, or relatively new book, called Aleister Crowley, Secret Agent 666. And it's not written by an occultist at all. It's written by a guy named Spence, who was the man that wrote the BBC series Riley Ace of Spies. So he truly was worked for British intelligence. But that also gave him the reputation of being a spy, or gave him the reputation of being a traitor or a double agent and stuff. And so he didn't care. He figured it'd all come out after he died. But along about 1913, 1914, his magical studies and interests and writings took a dramatic turn when he met a man that ran an organization, a small Masonic cul-de-sac of European Freemasonry. The man was called Theodore Royce, who oddly enough worked for the German Secret Service, but who also was an occultist and an administrative member of an organization, Masonic organization called Ordo Templi Orientis. And the reason it was sort of a undercover Masonic organization is because it held as part of its mysteries the study of I guess we could nowadays would call it Sufism, and the fact that that ecstasy in and of itself was a transcendent state of consciousness, and that that mystics, ecstatic mystics, including Christian mystics and Islamic or Muslim mystics, and Chinese mystics all over the world gained and worked with higher levels or expanded levels of consciousness through the mechanism of ecstasy. And when Crowley finally put two and two together, that I guess sexual energy was more or less the key that unlocked the mysteries of Christian mysticism, of esoteric Freemasonry, of everybody's impulse toward mind expansion through spiritual practices, then he more or less focused the rest of his long life. He died when he was 72. On the practice of this particular form of what was then known as sexual magic, and today we'd call it just aspects of Tantra Yoga. And so that gave this OT. He eventually took over the OTO and sort of reorganized its rituals, its ceremonies, to further expand on this theme. And so that's over the years has given the OTO the wrongly deserved reputation of being some kind of a sex cult. Believe me, there's people that wish that it was, but it isn't. If you get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you're going to have to win them over with your own charm, because this is not eyes wide shut stuff. Okay.
Gotcha. Well,
that's that. Aren't you sorry you asked?
Awesome. No, I feel very enlightened, and I want to go into a little bit of that a little more. But let's take a quick break. I think we're going to hear some messages from our sponsors, and I think we're going to listen to one of your songs, When I Fell in Love. So we'll be right back, folks.
Hi, guys. This is Sean Monkey McEnany, Monkey for short. You know what? If you're in town here in Sacramento, or if you're anywhere, you need to check out Midtown Moxies. They are a Sacramento burlesque troupe that is blowing my doors off. They are amazing. Generally, they have 2 shows a month. One called the Midtown Moxies and one called Moxie Crush. You need to go to midtownmoxies.com or find them on Facebook. They are amazing. They're beautiful. They're funny as hell. Trust me, I wouldn't be advertising with them if I didn't believe in them. They are freaking fantastic. Enough said. Go to midtownmoxies.com.
I used to think that love was just biology and emotion, an island of bliss in sorrow's infinite ocean, existing apart, locked deep in each lover's heart. But love is greater than he and she, love's the beat of God's heart. When you fall in love, you change the world, you change everything. Sun, moon, galaxies are created, your genes are mutated when you fall in love. When you kiss your love, you kiss the world, you kiss everything. Subatomic particles start to tingle, space and time mingle when you fall in love. Love's eternal, is what it is, was what it was, and it shall be infinitely love forever, ever and ever. Transcendental, love's all the all, it's wall to wall, and it's you and me. When you're making love, you lose the world, you lose everything. Two turn into one and then nothing. It's kind of a quantum thing, this falling in love.
Welcome back to Brown Chicken, Brown Cow, everyone. We are here with just an amazing subject on our spirituality and sexuality intersection, Lon Milo DuQuette. And we just heard that amazing song. Lon, what was the genesis? Where did you find When I Fell in Love? Because everybody has a story about the songs that they create and write and perform. Where did this one come from?
Actually, it came from an epiphany.
An epiphany, awesome.
Tell me more.
Well, no, it came from, that sounds egotistical and mystically presumptuous and everything else, but actually it did. Love is an energy. It's a force, as real as electricity or gravity or anything else.
Right.
And as human beings, as mammals with reptilian nervous systems, there's only so much of this force that we can adequately channel, work with, but what we can work with often manifests in profound ways. And in the old days, magicians used to try to explain these profound ways by personifying the different aspects of illumination, or aspects of the force of love, by breaking the symptoms of it down and identifying them as angels and as spirits and demons and other easily digestible images and forms. But in essence, it's now easier to explain by a quantum physicist. Okay, by quantum. Okay, it's more of a quantum thing, and the true handle on it, the switch that turns it all on. That if we could properly and totally identify with, we crudely call that love. And so when you fall in love, you change everything. Okay, and mm-hmm. when I say that sun and moon and galaxies are created, that your genes are mutated. Okay, mm-hmm. I really mean it. That song, at least my understanding of what I said in that song, is literal. and that the fact that it's easily demonstratable by quantum physics, that time as we know it does not exist. Space as we know it does not exist. And so when we try to explain things in terminology in which there's a past, present, and a future, and we're already just trying to understand a giant redwood tree by exploring a small cross section of its trunk.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so I really mean that. Okay, and so it comes off as a nice little love song when you fall in love, but I really meant when you fall in love. Okay. And so this idea that in that moment of ecstasy there is no subject and predicate. In that moment of ecstasy there isn't a you and an it. There is just you, and everything dissolves. That last verse when I said when you fall in love, you lose the world. You lose everything, well, just if you can imagine, when we look around us, we see that there's lots of stuff. There's almost an infinite amount of stuff around us, mm-hmm. And as our consciousness expands, we see that all of that stuff is really not really all of that stuff, but just a few things. Okay, and we expand our consciousness even more. We'll finally come to the point of where we think, well, there isn't even a few things. Actually, there's only two things. Okay, and if we could just smash those two things together to get to that one smooth point, we'd see that those two things even are just one thing, and it's in that oneness that you realize that there is this cool, ultimately smooth nothing, and that's what you are. And it's not the absence of something. No, it's the presence of everything that you mistakenly thought there was. Okay,
right. And
so it sounds it sounds very zen-y, you know. Well, that's because it is. But that's what the song's about, and I tried to put it in, in sort of a digestible verse. But the little opening is, I used to think that love was just biology and emotion. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's truly the beat of God's heart. So, and that's the current you ride on. If we could actually see what is holding the stars together, if we could actually see what is holding all the forces together, it's love. But the point is, it's not something outside of ourselves. It truly is our identity. And so from time to time, something happens in your life where you have that epiphany, and thank goodness I had a pencil at hand.
Now, this sounds very, very encompassing of a lot of different things here. How do you see this pulling in, like the sex, body, gender positivity roles that we all experience through life, and how that changed through life?
Well, what we're seeing today is one of the few, as far as people actually identifying with who they know they are on a sex gender level. It's one of the few things I see happening today that actually is a positive manifestation of an advance in human consciousness.
Right.
Crowley himself was, at the very least, we would call him bisexual. And I think he more or less was that, but in my eyes, he was more omnisexual. It's a word I made up just so people can quote me after I'm dead. He was omnisexual, and but so was Rumi. So were the countless Hindu saints of all time. Okay, we're this gender thing is really what complicates it, and what only needs to complicate it is the fact that we're trying to put all this together from the perspective of being a mammal. And that I say I love my family, but I'm more than my family, and I love my community, but I'm more than my community, and I love my country, but I'm more than my country. I'm a human being, and that's even bigger than my gender identity or anything else. That's where the two becomes one, and then nothing. And it's one of the few positive signs that I see while the rest of the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. It's one of the positive things I see, and that Crowley predicted was really one of the major symptoms of this advance in human consciousness, which he was positive enough to see this all as. That we see around us, and so the church, or the ecclesiastical expression of Crowley's magic, is in a ceremony called the Gnostic Mass, or the Mass of what he called the Gnostic Catholic Church. It's a beautiful ceremony. My wife and I have done it for 40 years. It's a public thing. You could take your grandmother to it. You could take kids to it. It's not like I say, it's not eyes wide shut. But it is this idea that everything can first be funneled in or expanded to two simple concepts. And Crowley saw it as the sky goddess Nuit and the sort of like the sun god Hadit. But ultimately it's Nuit, the goddess of the night sky of the Egyptians, is actually, if we think about infinity as infinitely expanded, the infinitely expanded space, and Hadit, her lover, is the infinitely contracted universe.
Wow.
So they you picture it as a circumference of a circle. That's one infinity, and there is an equal infinity that is the inscrutable positionless point in the middle, where all of that would be contracted. And so everything that manifests in the universe takes place in between that center and that circumference, but they're both infinite. So if the circumference is infinite and is everywhere, then the point, the middle of that, is also infinitely everywhere. And the purpose of the ceremony, which takes place in sort of the trappings of a beautiful, like Orthodox Christian ceremony, but it uses a priest and a priestess. And it takes a while to get the congregation into thinking that everything can be poured into these two concepts, and then these two concepts come together. meld, if you will. They stop being two and they become one. And the explosion of that fusion, I guess, if you could call it, more or less blesses everybody in the room, and it creates a child of their union. They're gone toward the end of the ceremony. They figuratively speaking, anyway, the priest and priestess totally dissolve. They're gone, and everything that they were is poured into this single baby, which is the host in the wine. And then the congregation, properly, illuminated and buzzing, come up and eat the little cookie and drink the wine in the same way that they do in Orthodox Christian ceremonies. But instead of just being passive participants in this thing, the ceremony itself draws everybody into it. It's done for the benefit of the congregation. So, in a sense, the fact that I can even get on your program, and the fact that for 40 years I could get a group of people that more or less get this, in my home, on a regular basis to participate in this pantomime of this cosmic pageantry is a really encouraging thing.
Wow. Okay, Lon, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to delve into your role with the OTO as the United States Deputy Grand Master and everything else that you do for the organization, to find out a little bit more about that from that aspect. We'll be back in just a minute after this word from our sponsors. You knew I was going to say that, though.
Hello, this is David Loretta Mola with the BCBC podcast. Now, I know you're sitting there thinking, what could David possibly tell me about condoms that I don't already know? Here's a fact. Do you get a condom that delivers to you monthly? I don't think you do. But if you order Lucky Blow condoms, they're great. They'll get you through whatever you need to do. And when you're done, no worries. There's no babies coming out of nothing. That's a fact. You can quote me on that. David Loretta Mola says, buy Lucky Blow condoms. You'll never regret it.
And we're back. I think we're going to talk a little more with our guest, Lon Milo DuQuette. We were talking a little bit about the Ordo Templi Orientis, and we wanted to get a little bit of a sense about your role in that. So I understand that you're the U.S. Deputy Grandmaster. What does that mean, and what does it mean you get to do?
Well, there's a grandmaster that serves for life, and then he's got a sidekick, sort of like the Cisco Kid in Poncho. I'm Poncho, and it's an administrative position. The OTO has a constitution and such that was drawn up by Crowley in the early 19s, so the role of the Deputy Grand Master is, I guess, what I make it. It's a wonderful, wonderful title, and it. I guess part of the reason I have it is because I've been in the order longer than any other person alive, and that I tend to behave myself and I'm not afraid to appear in public and help be the public face of the OTO, and so I guess part of my duties is what I'm doing with you right now.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely glad to help you with that. I noted in your bio as well that you're an archbishop for the Ecclesiastic Gnostic Catholica. Do those roles overlap, or are they entirely separate?
Well, the Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica is the ecclesiastic branch of Ordo Templi Orientis.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the OTO itself is structured along the lines of Freemasonry. There's a number of initiations and into degrees, which are very artfully, it's some of Crowley's best work, very artfully designed initiatory experiences that in and of themselves are just a fantastic experience for anybody to undergo the whole series. But at the soul of that, beating at its heart, is this Holy Grail thing, okay, which is that love thing, okay, and that is enshrined in that ceremony that I just awkwardly tried to explain to you just a moment ago, the Gnostic Mass. And so that gives us the situation of having like a church within a fraternal order, and in the same way as the Knights Templar was a military, mystical military order, but it had within itself its own priests, its own confessors. In a sense, it was a church within an order, or a fraternal order, or a military order. So the Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica is such a situation, and because the if we dissect the mysteries into levels, there are church levels, like deacon and priest and priestess, and okay, that are comparable on the same level. You have to be a certain degree in the OTO to hold those positions, because higher degrees carry with them administrative duties. And in the church, there's a certain amount of at least implied magical virtue that should accompany levels within the church. So at the top level of each, or toward the top level of each, is the office of bishop, and the bishop is like just in Orthodox Christian churches, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Roman, Greek, Russian Orthodox. Bishops are in charge of, are where the buck stops, where the energy comes from, where the buck stops within the certain, sometimes geographical segment of the church. So they have priests under their auspices and their care and training and things like that. And very early on in the order's rebirth, I was asked by the head of the OTO, who obviously was also the head of the church at the time, to consecrate another bishop, consecrate somebody a bishop myself. And I said, well, the bishops are supposed to be able to do that. I know that's the tradition, but I didn't really want to set that precedent within an organization as small and as immature as the order was then. And so, but the head of the church said, "Look, go ahead and do it, and then I'll make you archbishop, and you can be an archbishop that way." And
Wow.
I said, "Oh," so I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And so I did that, but that was almost a battlefield promotion, and the head of the organization since then said, "Well, I'm not going to make any more." You know, Lon, you're the last one of those, so behave yourself. You know. So in a sense, it's another one of those things. Why I don't know why I deserved it, but I'm trying not to. I'm not trying to bring dishonor upon the office.
Oh, yeah. Now, in my research, I found some questions out there that people were asking, and I thought it was kind of interesting because it kind of alludes to something you said before, that people think of the OTO as a sex cult. And sometimes when you're reading, you see when they get to the higher levels within the OTO, you might take part in sexual rituals with other members. Can you give us an answer as to what someone might potentially be looking at, or if it's ever mandatory that they take part in these type of roles?
No, it's not mandatory. Besides, there are no ceremonies such as that, even in the highest level of the OTO. The magic is something you would have to practice on your own. So the source of those rumors are entirely without foundation, and so there's not too much to comment on except that it's in somebody's erotic imagination, and to tell you the truth, there's people that join the OTO thinking that's going to happen, and they soon find out
I bet they're disappointed.
That they're very disappointed, and we hate to see them go. But like I say, if you're going to practice the magic of the OTO, you're going to have to do it completely on your own and and you're going to have to do it in such a way as you never even suggest that the organization is monitoring, encouraging, or
requiring
in any other way part of that. Yeah. Hate to disappoint people.
No, I think it's good to get the clarification out there and be clear what your organization is, what I'm going to call it, is about. So I guess kind of to go off of that, I know Crowley talks a lot about magic, or I think he calls it thelema, and when I was doing some research, I guess he calls it like the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit to that and speak to the difference between the magic that you're talking about and like if you go and see a magic show performance.
I didn't get that last part. What'd you say?
No. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit to what thelema, or like the magic that you're talking about, is, and the difference between that and like performance magic.
Oh, well, there's performance magic is just entertainment, you know. Okay, look at it this way. Magic, as we've traditionally been looking at it, even people who are somewhat knowledgeable, try to bring in ideas that sort of grew out of a shamanistic worldview of different realms, heavens above us and hells beneath us, and each of those populated with beings, devils and demons beneath us, and right here on Earth, some strange nature spirits and things like that, and then angels above us, various levels of angels above us, and then Godhead at the very top. And that's very kind of easy for a primitive mind to grasp, and it is effective on a practical level to a certain extent. Okay, because what you're dealing with is metaphors of consciousness, and those can be triggered. You can almost trick yourself into personifying these infinite abstract levels and eddies of consciousness, and focus that to accomplish at least a limited amount of phenomenal change around you. The magic of Thelema lifts the theory out of duality. Okay, it lifts the theory that you have to somehow, in a hierarchical way, negotiate yourself into getting a slave spirit to do something for you. Well, you do it in a way when you conquer, say, a bad habit. Okay, you invoke some kind of higher power to give you the self-control to overcome a destructive force. Okay, even when I learned to play the guitar, I had to conquer demons in me that were completely out of control. At the time, as a young boy, my ear was out of control. I couldn't differentiate notes. Okay, I had to fine tune the demons of my musical sensibility. Then one by one, I had to conquer the demons of my fingers in order to put my fingers on the right strings and the right frets. And then I had to conquer the demons of laziness that prevented me from memorizing countless songs. Okay, do you see what I'm talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, I had to literally go to a higher power and coerce my parents into buying me a freaking guitar. And all of that is classic. That is classic magic. Okay? Everything we do is magic. There isn't regular life and magic. All life is magic. You're a magician. I'm a magician. Everybody's a magician. They're either a good magician or a bad magician. Well, I should say they either accomplish their work as a magician well, or they do not accomplish it well. But they're all magicians, and any willed act, in a sense, is an act of classic magic. You're using unseen forces to cause change to occur in conformity with your will. Right. When you get into more elaborate and focused and I would have to say intelligent magic, sometimes you don't see all of the steps between the A of your need and the Z of your need being accomplished. You set into motion things that will accomplish your goal. But the thelemic magic is the recognition that it is not a dual situation, that the hierarchy is all within you. And if you want change to occur in conformity to your will, with your will, and you want that change to manifest in the outside world, the only thing that you have to work with is you. The only thing a magician can change with magic is the magician. And it's almost like, well, I don't have this in my life because I'm not the kind of person at the moment that this stuff happens to. And so you do the magic, and you can set it up in any artistic or theatrical or literary form that you would want.
Nice.
You create your own metaphors for what you're dealing with, but ultimately, you're saying, give me an adventure that changes me into the type of person that this stuff happens to. And that's where the magic is. Instead of identifying yourself as a lowly magician standing on a flat earth trying to get the sun to do something for you, you immediately go straight and identify with the sun itself. And that's the new thelemic expanded consciousness. You move your identity from the dualistic approach of being somehow at the mercy of everything, and you immediately say, "No, I'm the source of the whole thing. What do I have to do to properly execute this?" So that's in my opinion.
No, that sounds great. I think we're going to go to a quick break here, Lon, to get a word from our sponsors. Then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about that.
Hi guys, this is Sean Monkey McEnany, Monkey for short. What you need to know now is that brown chicken, brown cow needs your love. It needs your help, and personally, we could use your money. But short of that, what you need to do is go out and like our Facebook page. Number 2, give us a review on whatever podcast ability you have. Go out to iTunes, go out to Google Play, give us a good review because that helps. Number 3, subscribe. Subscribe to our podcast because that helps our numbers, helps us with advertisers, helps us with everything. It makes us look good, actually. And number 4, and this is very important, come close to the speaker. It's fantastic. You can go out to Patreon and support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/BCBC podcast. You can support us at whatever level of support you think you can manage. I don't want you to give us money if you can't do it, but I want you to give us some money and we'll give you back some love as well. We'll give you back some stuff. We'll talk about you on the radio. Who knows? But in the end, supporting us helps keep the show going. Subscribing to the podcast gives us better numbers. And liking our Facebook page, guess what? You always know when the show's coming. So, this is Monkey. You're you. We are together. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Fantastic. See you on the next show.
Brown chicken, brown cow. Welcome back to Brown Chicken, Brown Cow. I stumble over my words all the time, Laura. I don't know what it is.
It's just that when you get really excited, your tongue gets bigger, and then it's harder for you to talk. And we've been having this great discussion, and so I'm sure you're having some challenges over there.
Well, yeah. I don't know. So where were we heading to next, Laura?
Oh, that is a fabulous question. So, Lon, I think this is a good time for this question. So you do a lot of lecturing and discussing your organization. So what's the question no one ever asks that you wish they would about what you do and the Ordo Templi Orientis?
Oh, like I say, I don't wish you asked me anything. I didn't have anything to do today. You know that, maybe you don't know, but even the name of your show, one of my favorite books that I've written is called The Chicken Kabbalah. Did you know that?
Yes,
we did.
We saw some of your books recently. Yes.
So there's, in a sense, it's a funny name and it's a funny book because Kabbalah is so incredibly boring. And in order to keep people's attention to quickly grasp the Kabbalistic principles and fundamentals, I've taught it at a weekly magic class in my home since the late 70s. Every time I try to teach Kabbalah, it gets crazier and weirder and crazy and more outrageous and stuff. But then I realize that while people are laughing, it's like a magic bullet that delivers the essence of these Kabbalistic principles. And so I invented a rabbi I invented a fake rabbi named Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford, and I had him write this book, and then me as Lon would comment on the work of the good rabbi. And it's been very successful, and I'm very gratified by how it's been received. And I've just finished a new one. It's called Son of Chicken Kabbalah, and it's based on Kabbalah initiations that I created for a 4-part ongoing lecture series or workshop series in Beijing, China last year. And boy, if you think you need a challenge teaching Chinese Hebrew Kabbalah through a translator, it's enough to keep you up at night. So.
Oh, I bet. Now you've mentioned a couple of things, because I am a ex-comedian. I've done a lot of really silly things, and I put humor into almost everything that I do, and it seems like you do too, and that's one of the things I appreciated about reading through a number of your books. You were using that as a device to get the point across, or it's just your natural state of being?
It's my natural state of being. I try to be serious. God knows I would love to be taken seriously.
So throughout all of your books, I know Chicken Kabbalah, that's just a hilarious title. Which ones do you feel have the most impact and are also some of the funniest?
A very early book I wrote for Weiser, the wonderful publishing company. It was called My Life with the Spirits, and it was my first attempt at trying to share my understanding of magic and through almost purely through stories of my own experience, and it's like a biography or an autobiography. It's called My Life with the Spirits, and since then, over 20 years later, I wrote 2 other books. This time for Llewellyn Publishing, called Low Magic, and finally one that's called Homemade Magic. And in a sense, because I'm just allowed to speak anecdotally, and I know what I want to say, and I just say it in the only way I can, those are my favorites, and my the ones that I think are probably the funniest. But then there's also Chicken Kabbalah. But the one that I really think is the most valuable all around was a book that I wrote as a commentary to Aleister Crowley's famous tarot deck, the Thoth Tarot, and it's called Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot, and it's a Weiser book. And because in order to understand Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot, you have to learn a little bit about absolutely everything in modern magic, including the Golden Dawn, including Kabbalah, and including Crowley's life. And so if you want a one book, sort of a desert island recap of magic, Kabbalah, Thelema, Aleister Crowley, and tarot, it would be this Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot. And because it was, there's a beautiful Chinese translation of it. It was, I've used it as a textbook for all my trips to China. So, and it's in German. It's been handy when I speak in Europe too. So.
Awesome. So, Lon, I think we're probably going to start winding down here. But if people want to learn more or want to contact you, where can they find you? on like the internet and whatnot?
Yes, well, my Facebook page is really my big, just Lon Milo DuQuette on Facebook. I got a regular Facebook page and a Facebook fan page. But if they would just Google my name and go to Amazon, all my music is on Amazon. All my books are on Amazon. There's a little biography and everything. There's a picture where I actually am very handsome, and in that
you
picture,
are a very handsome chap. I will say that. I like you in that hat and in the video with the white suit. Very handsome.
Yes, and I fish around for that. But you can go to Barnes and Noble and everything else. My name will get you more websites than you need. And my music is on CD Baby. It's on Spotify. It's on Pandora. And I would really appreciate if everyone listening would buy a 6-pack of everything that I've done. I'm not asking you to read any of the books or listen to the music, but I would appreciate it if you would buy it, and
Perfect.
I will be very happy. So
now, before we go, we're going to listen to one more of your songs. It's called "I Like to Get Drunk in My Car." Now, you have to tell me about this song.
It's just simply
It's got a
the
great
truth.
title.
It's the truth. Not anymore. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm a non-drinker, but when I was, I enjoyed it very much, and I used to. For about 9 years, I had a wonderful 9 to 8 job where they didn't know what I did all day, and but at 4 o'clock I would come home. And I would stop off at my neighborhood liquor store where I knew everybody by their first names. And I would get 2 of these little canned martinis, these little club martinis. And I would knock those back as I drove sort of around the back cliff area of Newport Beach. And I'd watch the sun set over Catalina Island. And I would sing to myself, and I would just come home very, very blissed out, and dinner would be ready. It was gorgeous. But, of course, it was killing me, so I had to, stop that. But I sang the song first at a party my wife and I went to, and she'd never heard it. She didn't know that I'd been writing this song drunk in the car all this time. And the look on her face was worth it. It was this combination of shock and disgust and odd ecstasy, So I love to get drunk in the car because I used to love to get drunk in the car.
Well, Lon, we're going to take a listen to that in a moment. I want to say I'm honored to have you on. Thank you for joining us today and helping not only myself and Laura understand this world, but also get some clarification, learn more about what it's some of the core ideas about it, how it intersects with sexuality and gender and body positivity. It sounds like a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I just want to say thank you. Laura?
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. I feel like we could talk about a lot of these topics for hours and hours, so maybe at some point in the future we'll be able to talk some more.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and so let's just go ahead and sit back, look over the Catalina Island off the coast, and listen to I Like to Get Drunk in My Car.
They say that drinking and driving's a terrible curse. As felonies go, it's one of the worst. They say that drinking and driving brings misery and pain. But a guy needs a hobby to keep from going insane. I love to get drunk in the car. I love to get drunk in the car. Every night around 6, I look down at sweet whiskey. I love to get drunk in the car. It's a good thing I don't live too far from my job, 'cause I drink in the car. Down the back streets I slink, and I sing as I drink. I love to get drunk in the car. No, I don't like to drink in a bar. The urinals stink in a bar. I would much rather cruise in the fresh air and booze. I don't like to drink in a bar, 'cause I love to get drunk in the car. I love to get drunk in the car. Every night around 6, I look down there, sweet whiskey. I love to get drunk in the car. Sometimes I light up a cigar, and I smoke while I drink in the car. I can spit in the street. Jesus, isn't life sweet? I love to get drunk in the car. I love to get drunk in the car. I love to get drunk in the car. Every night around 6, us look down at sweet whiskey. I love to get drunk in the car. Each night as I drink in the car, I look out and wish on a star, and give thanks to the gods. I keep beating the odds, 'cause I love to get drunk in the car.
For information on becoming a sponsor, advertising with us, or becoming a guest on our show, visit us at brownchickenbrowncowshow.com. All material in the show is copyrighted 2017 by the Brown Chicken Brown Cow Show and Podcast and Marry You Creative Solutions. All rights are reserved.
Brown chicken, brown cow. 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 This is fun. Brown chicken, brown cow. Brown chicken, brown cow.